Hello there, this is 10 Walks That Explain Everything. I'm Nicholas Walton, and this is the first of the walks that I'm using to explain the quite astonishing country, the Netherlands. Quick guide to why it's astonishing. Well, one of the first things is its geography. You've got the Zuiderzee over there, but not over the other side of this dike that is over my left shoulder. But this is the province of Flevoland. Before the 1950s, it didn't exist. 50s and 60s, the land over there was also the Zuiderzee. And then they built this dike, they drained the land, and now you have a whole province. It's covered in tulip fields and potato fields, and there's lots of cows and sheep running around. It was a surprisingly interesting place to walk across. That's what I did in the second of the 4 videos that I'm doing here. This is the third, and in the first it was all about setting off. Oh, there's a sandpiper. Beautiful birds everywhere. The first of them was in Emmeloord, which is where I began the walk. That's several kilometers that way. Now, there is one bit of Flevoland that didn't used to be part of the Zuiderzee, and that is the island of Urk, and that's where I'm heading to now. Urk was always a bit isolated. I think that just about anyone in the Netherlands would still tell you that it is still a bit isolated. It's a very singular place. Some might even call it a bit peculiar. It certainly seems to be one of those quite remarkable places that exists in its own dimension. I've been here once before, and I found it fascinating, and that's why this first walk that I'm using to explain the Netherlands is from Emmeloord to Urk. Now, the idea of draining land wasn't a new thing for the Netherlands. They've been doing it for centuries and centuries and centuries. So if you look at the area over in North and South Holland, North Holland is the bit around Amsterdam, South Holland is the bit around The Hague going down to Rotterdam. So it's the bit next to the North Sea. Now, a lot of that land is below sea level. But over the centuries, it's been reclaimed from marshes, from little inland lakes and you know, sand dunes and so on. What they've done is the same principle, but obviously with much more, you know, old-fashioned techniques. They put up barriers around the edges of them, often around sort of individual sets of fields, sometimes around much larger areas like Flevoland, and then they've gradually lowered the water, and that's what the windmills are for. Most of the windmills aren't for grinding grain, although many of them also did that. More to the point, they were for pumping out water. You know, they would harness the power of the air, as you can see with these. They're doing it now for electricity. Back then, it was to create pumps that brought the water out, put water where they wanted it, and cleared the water from the land that they wanted. This is simply the way the Netherlands does things. It's a bit of an engineering marvel, to be honest. Now, back in 1959, the American Time magazine wrote an article about Urk. They called it one of the grimmest corners of this Calvinist country. Now, if you can imagine back then that the United States, with its bubblegum and milkshakes and pink-coloured Cadillacs, looked at pretty much the whole of Europe as a bit of a grim place, but especially the Netherlands. To single out Urk, it really showed that it had something to say. It said that this was a place that on a Sunday the only walk you could do was to church, the only book you could read was the Bible, that on a Sunday they even switched the paintings so that whatever was on them faced the wall. This was a place where frivolity on a Sunday was not allowed. Now, it gives you some sense of the place, but then what happened was a causeway was built, and this is why the journalists were in town, because the causeway was causing quite a little bit of consternation, and as far as the elders were concerned, it was also fueling shall we say, a bit of a change in behaviour of the youths of the town. There were fights. Every so often, young ladies and young men would disappear to corners of the causeway where they couldn't be found and get up to goodness knows what kind of nonsense. And this really disconcerted a lot of the elders of the town. And it only confirmed their view that things that came from outside Urk were not necessarily to be trusted. Now, things have changed. Now it's not just a causeway. The whole of 3 sides of the town are connected to the mainland. This goes back to something I spoke about in the first of these videos of this walk across Flevoland. That modern-day image of the Netherlands as modern and liberal and fun was something that gained wings only in the late 60s and early 70s. Brand orange, I called it. Before then, as Albert Camus wrote, Amsterdam was a place where pipe smokers watched the same rain fall on the same canals for centuries on end. It was a very grey place. The Netherlands in 2024 is not the same as it was in the 1950s by any stretch of the imagination, but if there's one thing that Urk holds dear, it's that idea that things that come from outside Urk are not entirely to be trusted. The first time I visited Urk, it was winter. It was dark and wet, and the place seemed as otherworldly and threateningly ominous as its image suggested. But this time, as I drew nearer across the shores of the IJsselmeer, it was sunny and the beaches were full of laughter. A little bit different then. So, find out in the fourth video of this first walk that explains the Netherlands what Urk was actually like in bright sunshine. Thanks for watching.